My name is Sloan. Many children in Liberia, West Africa, sometimes die from hunger. They have no access to food on a regular basis as we do in America. According to a 2012 government survey, it shows that every fifth household in Liberia is malnourished. At one point in 2009, health officials estimated that about 74,000 of Liberia's children would die from malnutrition by 2015. The recent Ebola outbreak has caused more fear of hunger in Liberia, and at one point starvation became a threat. As Ebola took lives in Liberia in 2014, it left hunger and loss of many parents. 90% of families have reduced the amount of food consumed at each meal, and 85% are eating fewer meals. According to a survey by the Mercy Group, food insecurity has now affected all areas of the country. With your help and funds given to Vision for Children in Liberia, you will be making a change in the country. In conclusion, please help Vision for Children in Liberia help our orphan children in Liberia, West Africa. Thanks.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Precious Dennis. According to research, over 4,500 children lost their parents in Liberia, West Africa, from the Ebola virus in 2014. Due to Ebola virus, many children in Liberia became orphaned. In Liberia, school closed down due to fear that the virus might spread around. Some kids were lucky enough to have families or someone to take care of them. On the other hand, some children became vulnerable, especially children that lost their parents. During the Ebola time, you couldn't even visit your friends, even your own house. You couldn't touch anyone. You couldn't hug any kids. People were very afraid. As the Ebola spread, airlines canceled flights to Liberia. The Office of Multinations Business shattered. Eventually, people stopped living their house altogether. Brothers, sisters, mothers, and fathers, please help Vision for Children in Liberia to continue support for our orphan children. Thank you.
Guest speaker, Mr. Charles Cooper. He's a native Liberian. The president had instructed me to divert my operation, so I will call upon Mr. Sidiki Donzo to do the introduction of the guest speaker. Mr. Donzo.
Thank you. I hope everybody's doing great. How everybody doing today?
All right.
I can see that. So, in terms of Mr. Charles Cooper, first on that, I got to know Mr. Charles Cooper a couple of years ago. But this young man has proved himself beyond all doubts. Mr. Charles Cooper was born in Liberia and came to the United States in his early age. And when he came to the United States, he didn't forget about Liberia, and he decided to work in the Liberian community and make sure and change things that can change the mind of people, what is going in Liberia. And Mr. Charles Cooper also proved himself. Let me not go beyond that space. One time when the Ebola crisis came out, Mr. Charles Cooper called upon me and said, hey, we as a Liberian, we've been in this country before all immigrants. We were here before the Dominicans, we were here before a lot of immigrants, we were here before the Senegalese and so forth. What can we do to help the Liberian community to reach them in the United States? So in doing so, and he came up with a lot of analogy, possible analogy that we can put into place to help Liberia. And in continuity of that, Mr. Charles Cooper just has a master's from Cornell University, Penn University in New York State, also doing law at one of the best law schools in the United States, in New York as well. So everybody, please stand up and welcome on the stage, Mr. Charles Cooper.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. At this time, I just want to take an opportunity to recognize the leadership and organizations here that we know that a great organization, the Children of Liberia, could not be possible without the support and the strength of the community. So I thank you. Additionally, I'd like to say a few words about Brother Nguyen. I've known Nguyen for several years now. We served on the African Advisory Council as the media chair. And he always seemed to amaze me. Whatever Brother Nguyen put his mind to, he's one that is very committed. And he does not stop until he accomplishes it. And from the very beginning, he mentioned Children of Liberia years ago. And it's great to see that we are here this evening, and we are here to support a great initiative that is currently bearing fruits and will change the life of Liberia. Please give him a round of applause. As my brother Sidiki Dunzo mentioned, I was in Liberia several years ago facilitating a research project for Vcil. And while conversing with Brother Nguyen about education, he saw the presentation and he said, if you can share with the group just of your experience and what is currently happening in Liberia. Because sometimes when you have not yourself done a thorough assessment, you have not yourself went to parts of Liberia, like River G, like Senequale, and have seen the education disparity, you don't understand how much more our country needs. And you don't understand how important it is for organizations like Children for Liberia to flourish. So at this time, I would like to share this presentation with the body here this evening. It's based on a research study which was from LTTP, Liberia Teacher Training Program.
The light.
Please can I get the lights?
Okay.
So just a little background knowledge. There was a study done on Liberia in 2010. It basically showed that after the war, less than 20% of the teachers in Liberia were trained. Imagine that, less than 20%. And especially true for some of the counties that were further out. For example, Riversex, less than 2%. Grand Cru, less than 5%. River G, less than 7%. And these are our kids that will someday take over, and we're expecting to bear fruits for Liberia as they compete internationally in this global society we live in, that are not being properly educated. So the C certificate program was created as an entry point into teaching teachers how to teach. There were two programs that were created. One was the in-service program, and the other was the pre-service program. The in-service program was for teachers that was already in the classroom. They may not have been trained, but we all know after the Civil War, wherever you could find a job, you found a job, whether you had the skill sets or not. And the C certificate program was to get them caught up to speed with respect to the pedagogy, teaching, the curriculum, etc. And then there was the pre-service program. And the pre-service program was a dynamic program in which for 9 months, you will have students coming from all over, depending on where they live. There was 3 main sites. One was in Kakata at BWI. The other was in River G, which was the Rebel Regional Teacher Institute. And the other was in Lofa County. And based on where the students were, they were recruited right out of high school upon completion. They were then brought to these teacher institute, and they was there for 9 months. And within that period of time, they learned everything from the foundation, such as the philosophy, to child development, the psychology, the pedagogy, and the teaching content itself. So once they left, there was full-fledged teachers. So that's just a background of where the study comes from. So, as I mentioned, 70% of primary school teachers were inadequate, trained, or unqualified. So, USAID invested over $50 million to go into teaching teachers how to teach through the RTTIs and through the pre-service and in-service program in collaboration with the Ministry of Education. Interesting enough, 10 to 15% of teachers recruited were females, and the goal of the program itself was to make sure to increase the number of female teachers in the classroom. Prior to the war, the ratio of male versus female was about 60% female, 40% male. After the war, it was about 90% males and 10% female. So there was this huge gender imbalance that existed, and the goal was to try to fix that within a certain period of time. LTTP was created to enhance the quality, efficiency, and effectiveness of teachers at the primary level. In 2012 was the start of the impact study. The study was to determine what portion of teachers measured to the level of adequate. Looking at pedagogy, looking at classroom management, looking at learning and teaching. And adequate was defined as at least 67% in knowledge, skills, and process. There was limitation on the study, of course, such as observation of teachers. What we often found out is that sometimes you will go to a certain school and you will have a teacher listed, but that teacher haven't been at that post for about a year or two. And as I think as Mr. Noah mentioned, that's one of the issues in Liberia, transparency. In addition, teachers and students may exhibit different behavior than their norms. So this was a quantitative and qualitative study in which we had 47 randomly picked teachers that was a part of the original cohort when the LTTP program had first launched. So the goal was to look at these teachers that should be seasoned now, that have gone through the training, that should be in their classroom, that should be using the skill sets and the materials used in moving the kids to a higher level. So there was the quantitative component, but there was also the qualitative component as well. Because we know oftentimes the numbers doesn't say everything. Sometimes you need to talk to the folks and see what is actually going on the ground, what are some of the challenges, and what are some of the success. The quantitative was a descriptive study from observation. The observation focused on lesson planning, mode of delivery, lesson content, student-teachers interaction, and the observation occurred during normal hours. And the great thing about this was I led a team of 70 individuals that was dedicated to this research. And every single day, we will get updates with respect to their challenges and what they're seeing in the classrooms. So the observation was 45 minutes. There were data cleaning. There was 93 unannounced observations. So everything was organic. Because you know sometimes when you know you're being observed, you know, the dynamic of things change. And the goal was to keep this very organic and to get a real life experience of if you was a child in the classroom, what type of learning you would receive. So the observation, as you can see, we were in most of the counties, not all of them. We was in Bond County, Lofa, Nimba, Mount Gibby, and Montserrat. Majority of the study itself was in Nimba, a very large number, which was 30%. We had 25% of the observation in Montserrat, 24% in Lofa, 13% in Bong County, and 9% in Mangi. So one of the items we looked at was planning. Whether the lesson plan followed the approved format, because they either should have learned it during pre-service or in-service training. Whether the specific learner outcome and objectives, whether the lesson plan included all sections, whether the teachers had materials, teaching aids available, whether the lesson plan considered was prior lesson learned by students, and whether the lesson plan reflected a high degree of teacher mastery of content. And as you can see from there, we had 3% of teachers actually meeting that standard. We had 16% that was in the middle, and we had 80% that was low. And part of it also was the materials. And this is why one of the reasons I would encourage the folks in the room to really support this organization. The teachers themselves don't have enough materials. So how can you now use this pedagogy properly when you don't have the necessary material? Simple things as chalk was lacking in certain classrooms. And this is what this organization that we're here for, they're doing. This is one of the teachers, one of the few teachers that actually had a notebook to write that lesson plans in. Simple things that we take for granted, but could change the life of how these teachers teach and the opportunities they're able to give to the young folks. This is an example of one of the lesson plans from one of the schools in Kakata. And as you can see, this is some of the things that they learned during the LTTP program, which they taught a certain standard for lesson plans with respect to the objectives, the materials, the time allocated. Very nice lesson plans, which is elaborate, but they don't necessarily have the materials to facilitate it. So, as we're here today, I know we're all supporting Children for Liberia, but I would encourage that we dig deeper and support more. The other item was management. And as you can see, the total management, we have 57% of the teachers' population. It's very low, 40% medium, and 3% high. Next slide. With respect to instruction, in which we looked at how the teacher was delivering instruction, the presentation, whether the content was appropriate, and the opportunity for student involvement in their learning process. And through that, we saw that 59% of the teachers was on the low end, 39% was right in the middle, and 2% was high. So, the conclusion itself, someone were able to go through the LTTP program. The challenge that they faced was actually having the resources in class to be able to support their students. Simple things as notebooks, the students didn't have, pencils, and that was part of my recommendation. Because of course we can say we need staff development, we need to improve the lesson plan, we need to provide an updated curriculum. But the denominator in all of this is you can teach the teacher how to become an effective instructor in the classroom. But if you don't have the proper lesson plans, if you don't have the materials to support that lesson plan, at the end of the day, we're going to have another generation that are uneducated, that don't have the resources and the means to be able to compete in this global society we find ourselves in. So I charge everyone in this room to please support this great organization, Children of Liberia, because when I look at everyone here, we are the fortunate ones. We're here. We have the opportunity. But there are a lot of folks back home that don't have the opportunity. And they look to organizations like Children for Liberia for support. So that's my presentation. I'd like to thank you all for your time this evening, and I encourage everyone to support the organization. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Cooper.
Lights.
Let's give it up for Brother Charles Cooper for the analysis on teacher training in Liberia. I think one of the solutions to better education in Liberia is to have good teachers. And those analysis and the research report is necessary as we prepare to revamp the educational system. Just to share a story with this audience. Recently I was in a gathering where a prominent Liberian who had access to obtaining scholarships gave a very alarming report that the best students from Liberia cannot compete with other West African students It's not that our students are not smart, but the problem is that they are not well prepared. And so those scholarships that are made available for West Africa, Liberia does not benefit from it. Our A students are not given the opportunity to obtain those scholarships. And so it is necessary when you hear the kind of research reports that those in the responsibility or revamping the educational system have to pick.
With respect to our children in Liberia, I think this program, this fundraising, is not only gearing toward physical cash, it also geared toward material benefit. I would like to bring you greetings from my supervisor, Mr. Haggett. For my personal donation, I wish to make a donation of 100 copybooks, 2,000 pencils, between 25 to 50 leisure books for teachers, 75 or 3 sets of encyclopedias, 25 dictionaries, between 500 to 1,000 books for all grades. Oh, thank you very much.
Wow. What a great opportunity. I gave it a hand of applause.